The Saturday morning sun cast long shadows across the Pine Ridge shooting range as Sarah Mitchell pulled into the gravel parking lot. Her Honda Civic looked out of place next to the pickup trucks and military surplus vehicles that typically filled the spaces. She grabbed her rifle case from the trunk, a modest Remington 700 that had belonged to her grandfather, and walked toward the main building. Sarah had been coming to Pine Ridge every weekend for 3 years, ever since her divorce had left her searching for something to fill the empty hours. What started as curiosity about her grandfather's old hunting rifle had evolved into something approaching obsession. Not the dangerous kind, but the quiet, methodical pursuit of perfection that appealed to her accountant's mind. The range officer, Pete Williams, nodded as she signed in. "Lane 12 is open, Sarah. Got some new targets in this week if you want to try something different. The usual paper bulls will do fine, thanks." Sarah headed toward her preferred spot, the lane farthest from the tactical training area where the serious shooters gathered. She preferred the quiet end where she could focus without the distraction of rapid fire and tactical drills. As she unpacked her equipment, Sarah noticed unusual activity at the far end of the range. A group of men in civilian clothes were setting up what looked like a complex training scenario. Their movements were precise, economical, speaking to military training even without uniforms. She tried not to stare, but their professionalism was impossible to ignore. Sarah set up her shooting mat and adjusted her rifle's scope. The familiar routine calmed her mind. Check the wind flags, verify the distance markers, load 5 rounds into the magazine. Her grandfather had taught her the fundamentals before she was old enough to understand their importance. "Shooting is 90% mental," he used to say. "The other 10% is 90% mental too." She settled into position and focused on her breathing. The morning was perfect for precision shooting, minimal wind, good visibility, temperature cool enough to prevent mirage. Sarah's first shot struck the 10 ring at 100 yards, followed by 4 more shots that formed a tight cluster just slightly left of center. "Not bad for warm-up," she murmured, walking down range to collect her target. The group measured just under 2 inches, respectable for factory ammunition but not quite what she was capable of achieving. Sarah had hand-loaded some match-grade rounds the previous evening, and she was eager to see how they performed. Setting up a fresh target, she noticed one of the men from the tactical group watching her through binoculars. The attention made her slightly uncomfortable, but she tried to ignore it. Sarah had encountered range voyeurs before, men who seemed fascinated by the novelty of a woman who could shoot accurately. She usually just focused on her practice and waited for them to lose interest. Her second group with the hand-loaded ammunition was significantly better. 5 shots clustered within an inch and a half, with 4 of them forming a ragged hole in the center of the bullseye. Sarah smiled with satisfaction as she walked down range again. This was why she came to the range, these moments of precision that made everything else fade away. When she returned to the firing line, she found someone waiting at her shooting station. A tall man in his early 30s wearing jeans and a plain gray t-shirt stood examining her rifle with the careful attention of someone who understood firearms. His hair was cut short, and his posture spoke to military training, but his approach was respectful rather than intrusive. "Excuse me," Sarah said, setting down her target. "That's my rifle." The man turned and extended his hand. "Sorry about that. I'm Marcus Torres. I was just admiring your setup. That's a beautiful rifle, and, judging by your targets, you know how to use it." Sarah shook his hand, noting the firm grip and calloused palms that suggested regular training. "Sarah Mitchell. And, thank you, though I can't take credit for the rifle. It was my grandfather's." "He taught you to shoot like that?" "Basic fundamentals. The rest I figured out through trial and error, mostly error at first." Sarah was surprised by how easy Marcus was to talk to. Most of the serious shooters she encountered at the range were either condescending or overly technical. Marcus nodded toward her target. "That's some impressive shooting, especially with factory equipment. What's your background? Military? Law enforcement?" Sarah laughed. "Accountant. I do taxes and bookkeeping for small businesses. Not exactly a tactical profession. Sometimes the best shooters come from unexpected places." Marcus's expression grew more serious. "Mind if I ask you something? What's your longest confirmed hit?" "Confirmed hit? You mean like hunting?" Sarah was puzzled by the military terminology. Any accurate shot at extended range. Hunting, competition, practice. Sarah thought for a moment. Well, I shot at the 500-yard gongs last month and hit consistently, but I've never really tested my limits. Why do you ask? Marcus looked back toward the tactical training area where his teammates were setting up a long-range course. My team is working on some precision shooting scenarios today. We could use someone with your skills to help with target placement and range estimation. Interested in earning $50 for an hour of work? The offer was tempting, and Sarah's curiosity was piqued. What kind of target placement? Nothing complicated. We need someone to spot targets and call corrections from the 200 to 800 yard lines. Your shooting background means you'd understand what we're trying to accomplish. Sarah glanced toward the tactical area. The men were setting up what looked like a sophisticated training course with multiple target positions and observation points. I suppose I could help out. But I should mention that I've never done anything like spotting for tactical shooting. That's actually an advantage. You won't have any bad habits to unlearn. Marcus picked up Sarah's rifle case. Mind if we set up your rifle as a backup spotter scope? The optics on that Remington look solid. As they walked toward the tactical range, Marcus explained that his team was a special operations unit conducting advanced training exercises. He didn't specify which branch or unit, but Sarah gathered they were quite elite based on the sophisticated equipment and the intensity of their preparation. The other team members were friendly but focused. They included Sarah in their briefing without making her feel like an outsider, explaining the exercise objectives and safety procedures with professional efficiency. Sarah learned that they were practicing long-range interdiction scenarios, engaging targets at distances up to 1,000 yards while accounting for wind, elevation, and other environmental factors. Sarah's going to help with spotting and target verification, Marcus announced to his team. She's got excellent marksmanship skills and understands ballistics. One of the other operators, a compact man named Rodriguez, looked up from his rifle preparation. No offense, but we usually use trained military spotters for these exercises. Marcus nodded toward Sarah's targets, which he had brought along. Take a look at her shooting before you make any judgments. Rodriguez examined the targets, his eyebrows rising as he studied the tight groups. Damn! What distance? 100 yards with factory ammunition, Sarah answered. I've been working on hand loads that should tighten up the groups even more. That's some serious precision shooting. Rodriguez's skepticism had transformed into respect. You ever consider competitive shooting? Sarah shook her head. This is just a hobby for me. Stress relief after long days at the office. The team spent the next hour setting up targets at various distances, with Sarah helping to position range cards and verify distances with a laser rangefinder. Her accounting background proved useful for the mathematical calculations involved in ballistic compensation, and her shooting experience helped her understand the practical challenges the operators would face. When they were ready to begin the live fire exercise, Marcus handed Sarah a high-powered spotting scope. Your job is to call wind conditions and help us verify hits at the longer distances. Think you can handle that? Sarah nodded, though she felt slightly overwhelmed by the responsibility. These men were clearly professionals whose training had life-and-death applications. Her weekend hobby suddenly seemed insignificant in comparison. The first shooter was Rodriguez, engaging targets at distances from 200 to 600 yards. Sarah found herself naturally falling into the rhythm of spotting, calling wind conditions and helping to identify target impacts. Her mathematical mind easily processed the ballistic calculations, and her shooting experience helped her understand the challenges each shot presented. After Rodriguez finished his course of fire, Marcus took position behind his rifle. His weapon was significantly more sophisticated than Sarah's grandfather's hunting rifle, a custom precision rifle with advanced optics and a suppressor that reduced the sound signature. As he settled into position, Sarah noticed the methodical precision of his preparation. Marcus engaged targets at increasingly longer distances, with Sarah providing wind calls and impact verification. When he reached the 800-yard targets, Sarah found herself holding her breath as she watched through the spotting scope. The distances involved were far beyond anything she had attempted, and the level of precision required was astounding. Winds picking up from the southwest, about 5 miles per hour, Sarah called, studying the wind flag's position throughout the range. Marcus made a subtle adjustment to his scope and fired. Through the spotting scope, Sarah watched the bullet impact precisely in the center of the target. The shot was so accurate that she initially thought she had lost track of the target. "Center hit," she called, her voice carrying a note of awe despite her attempt to sound professional. Marcus completed his course of fire with remarkable consistency, hitting targets at distances Sarah had never imagined attempting. When he finished, he looked over at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Not bad for a weekend hobby," Rodriguez commented, studying Sarah's spotting notes. "You called those wind conditions like someone with real training." Marcus stood up from his shooting position and walked over to Sarah. "I want to try something, if you're willing. There's an 800-yard target that's been giving us trouble all morning. I think you might be able to hit it." Sarah stared at him in disbelief. 800 yards? "Marcus, the farthest I've ever shot is 500, and that was just hitting steel gongs the size of dinner plates. Trust me on this. I've been watching how you read conditions and process information. You've got the fundamentals down solid, and, frankly, your equipment is capable of shots at that distance." The rest of the team had gathered around, their conversation creating an unexpected pressure that Sarah felt building in her chest. She looked at the distant target through the spotting scope, a standard silhouette that looked impossibly small at 800 yards. "I don't want to waste your time or ammunition," Sarah said. "Professional shooters have been training for years to make shots like that." Marcus picked up her rifle and checked the scope settings. "Professional training can sometimes be a limitation. You don't have any preconceptions about what's impossible. Your shooting is pure fundamentals applied consistently. Besides," Rodriguez added with a grin, "what's the worst that could happen? You miss a target that's been kicking our asses all morning anyway." Sarah found herself walking toward the 800-yard firing position before she had consciously made the decision to try. The logical part of her mind was screaming that this was beyond her capabilities, but another part, the part that had fallen in love with the precision and mental challenge of marksmanship, was curious to see what might be possible. Marcus helped her set up the rifle, making minor adjustments to the scope and explaining the ballistic calculations required for the longer distance. The mathematics were more complex than anything Sarah had attempted, but her accounting background made the numbers manageable. "The key at this distance is reading the wind correctly," Marcus explained. "You've got multiple wind zones between here and the target, and they can all affect the bullet's path differently." Sarah studied the wind flags and vegetation between the firing position and the target. The morning breeze was variable, shifting between calm and light gusts from different directions. She tried to apply everything she had observed during the morning's training exercise. Settling into position behind her grandfather's rifle, Sarah felt the familiar comfort of the stock against her shoulder and the smooth trigger beneath her finger. The target looked incredibly small through the scope, but the fundamentals remained the same regardless of distance. "Whenever you're ready," Marcus said quietly, taking position beside her with the spotting scope. Sarah controlled her breathing and tried to clear her mind of doubt. 800 yards was just a number. The target was just another bullseye. The shot was just another opportunity to apply consistent fundamentals. The rifle's report seemed unusually loud in the morning stillness. Through the scope, Sarah lost sight of the target momentarily as the rifle recoiled. When she reacquired the image, she couldn't immediately see any sign of impact. "Did I miss completely?" she asked, feeling embarrassed by what seemed like an obvious failure. Marcus was silent for several seconds, studying the target through his spotting scope. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a note of surprise that made Sarah look up from her rifle. "Sarah," he said slowly, "you need to see this." Sarah lifted her head from the rifle scope and looked at Marcus, whose expression had shifted from casual encouragement to something approaching amazement. Rodriguez had moved closer with his own spotting scope, and the other team members were gathering around with obvious curiosity. "What exactly am I supposed to be seeing?" Sarah asked, a knot of anxiety forming in her stomach. She was certain she had missed the target entirely, and the prolonged silence was making her increasingly uncomfortable. Marcus handed her his spotting scope without taking his eyes off the distant target. 800 yards, center silhouette. Tell me what you see." Sarah adjusted the focus and studied the target. For a moment, she saw nothing unusual, just the standard human silhouette shape against the backstop. Then, she noticed a small hole precisely in the center of the target's chest area, exactly where a perfect shot would impact. "That can't be my shot," she said, lowering the scope. "There's no way I made a hit like that on my first attempt at this distance." Rodriguez had been tracking the exercise with a ranged notebook, and he consulted his notes before speaking. Nobody else has engaged that particular target today. We've been working on the targets to either side of it, but that center silhouette has been untouched. Sarah looked through the spotting scope again, trying to convince herself that she was seeing things that weren't there. But the hole was definitely present, and it was positioned with surgical precision. The shot placement was better than anything she had ever achieved at conventional distances. "Marcus, this doesn't make sense," she said, handing back the spotting scope. "I'm not trained for shots like this. I don't understand the ballistics involved. Hell, I didn't even know how to adjust my scope properly for the distance." Marcus was studying her with the intense focus she had noticed earlier, but now his expression suggested he was processing information rather than making casual observations. "Sarah, I need to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before answering. Have you ever had any formal training in mathematics or engineering? Anything that would help you process complex calculations quickly?" "I have a degree in accounting and work with financial modeling software daily." "Why? What about your family background? Any military service or law enforcement experience?" Sarah was beginning to feel uncomfortable with the direction of the questioning. "My grandfather served in Korea, but he was infantry, not a sniper or anything specialized. My father was a high school shop teacher. I'm probably the least military person you're likely to meet." Marcus exchanged glances with Rodriguez, some kind of silent communication passing between them. Rodriguez nodded and walked back toward the equipment area, returning with what appeared to be a more sophisticated rifle than anything Sarah had seen. "I want to try something else," Marcus said. "That shot could have been beginner's luck, though I've never seen luck that precise. Are you willing to attempt another long-range shot with different equipment?" Sarah hesitated. The first successful shot felt like a fluke, and she was concerned about pushing her luck too far. On the other hand, her curiosity was overwhelming her caution. If she really had made that shot through skill rather than accident, she wanted to understand how. "What kind of different equipment?" Rodriguez set down a rifle that looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie compared to her grandfather's hunting rifle. The weapon featured a sophisticated scope, adjustable stock, and various modifications she didn't recognize. "This is a precision rifle system used by military and law enforcement snipers," Marcus explained. "It's designed specifically for long-range accuracy. The optics are calibrated for distances up to 1,500 yards, and the ammunition is match-grade specification." Sarah ran her hands along the rifle's stock, noting the precision engineering in every component. "I wouldn't even know how to adjust the scope settings." "That's what makes this interesting. I want to see what happens when you apply your natural abilities to equipment designed for this type of shooting." Marcus spent 20 minutes explaining the rifle's features and helping Sarah adjust the stock to fit her dimensions properly. The weapon felt different from her familiar Remington, heavier, more stable, but also more intimidating. The scope's reticle included markings and calculations she didn't understand. "For now, just treat it like your grandfather's rifle," Marcus suggested. "Use the same fundamentals you've been applying. The equipment will handle most of the technical calculations automatically." They selected a target at 600 yards this time, a steel silhouette that would provide both visual and audible confirmation of hits. Sarah felt more pressure with the team watching closely, but she tried to maintain the relaxed focus that had served her well during recreational shooting. The rifle's trigger was significantly more refined than anything she had experienced. When she applied pressure, the weapon fired with a crisp, clean break that surprised her. The recoil was also different, more of a straight push than the upward kick of her hunting rifle. Through the scope, Sarah watched the steel target swing back from the bullet impact. The hit was centered precisely in the silhouette's vital zone, producing a clear ringing sound that carried across the range. "Outstanding shot," Rodriguez called out, making notes in his range book. "Dead center at 600 yards. Sarah lifted her head from the scope feeling both excited and confused. Two successful long-range shots suggested that the first hadn't been entirely luck, but she still couldn't explain how she was achieving this level of accuracy without proper training. Marcus was studying her with increasing intensity. "Sarah, I need to be direct with you about something. What you're doing isn't normal. The shots you're making require skills that typically take years to develop, even for people with extensive training. Maybe your equipment is just better than what I'm used to," Sarah suggested, though she knew that explanation didn't account for her first success with her own rifle. Equipment helps, but it can't compensate for fundamental skill gaps. You're reading wind conditions like someone with years of experience. Your mathematical processing of ballistic information is faster than most trained snipers. And your natural shooting position is textbook perfect. One of the other team members, a quiet man named Johnson, spoke up for the first time. Marcus is right. I've been watching your fundamentals, and they're solid across the board. Breathing control, trigger manipulation, natural point of aim, everything is consistent with advanced training. Sarah felt increasingly uncomfortable with the attention and analysis. Look, I appreciate the compliments, but I think you're reading more into this than actually exists. I got lucky with a couple of shots, that's all. Then, prove it, Marcus said, his tone becoming more serious. I want to set up a more comprehensive test. Multiple targets at varying distances with different wind conditions. If this is just luck, it won't continue. If it's genuine skill, we need to understand what we're dealing with. What do you mean by what we're dealing with? Marcus looked toward his teammates before answering. Sarah, I'm going to share something with you that we don't usually discuss with civilians. My team specializes in precision operations that require exceptional marksmanship skills. We're always looking for individuals with natural aptitude who might be suitable for advanced training. Military recruitment? Sarah was surprised by the direction of the conversation. I thought you said you were just conducting training exercises. We are, but part of our mission involves identifying and developing talent wherever we find it. The skills you're demonstrating suggest potential that would be wasted in civilian applications. Sarah felt a mix of flattery and concern. The morning had started as a routine visit to her local shooting range and had evolved into something approaching a job interview for activities she didn't fully understand. Rodriguez had been setting up additional targets during their conversation, and he returned with a more complex shooting scenario. If you're seriously interested in understanding your capabilities, we've got targets positioned at 400, 600, and 800 yards. Different sizes, different positioning. This will give us a better assessment of consistency. And if I can't hit them? Then, we'll know the first shots were exceptionally good luck, and we'll all go back to our regular training, Marcus answered. No pressure, no judgment. Despite his words, Sarah could feel the pressure building. These professional operators were investing significant time and attention in her performance, suggesting that her success would have implications beyond casual range practice. Sarah decided to approach the challenge with the same methodical focus she applied to complex accounting problems. She would treat each shot as a separate equation requiring careful analysis of variables and consistent application of known principles. The first target was positioned at 400 yards, a distance she had attempted before with reasonable success. Using the precision rifle, Sarah felt more confident in her equipment's capabilities. The shot broke cleanly and impacted center mass on the steel target. Good hit, Johnson called out. Moving to 600 yards. The second target required more careful calculation of wind drift and bullet drop. Sarah took additional time to study the environmental conditions and make mental adjustments. Her shot struck slightly left of center but well within the vital zone of the target. For the 800-yard target, Sarah found herself drawing on everything she had observed during the morning's training exercise. The wind had shifted since her first long-range attempt, and the afternoon sun was creating heat shimmer that complicated accurate range estimation. Sarah's final shot took nearly 2 minutes to set up as she carefully processed all the variables she could identify. When the rifle fired, she maintained her sight picture long enough to watch the bullet's impact through the scope. The shot struck high and right of center, still within the target area but less precise than her earlier attempts. 3 for 3, Rodriguez announced, updating his notes. Accuracy degraded slightly with distance and changing conditions, but all shots were within acceptable parameters for tactical applications. Marcus had been silent during the shooting sequence, watching Sarah's technique rather than focusing on the targets. When she finished, he approached with a serious expression. Sarah, I need to ask you something important, and I want you to consider your answer carefully. Are you interested in learning what your shooting abilities could become with proper training and equipment? What kind of training are we talking about? Advanced marksmanship instruction. Tactical applications. Situations where precision shooting serves larger objectives than personal recreation. Sarah looked around at the sophisticated equipment and professional operators who had spent their morning evaluating her performance. The proposition was both exciting and terrifying. "I have a business to run," she said finally. "Clients depend on me, especially during tax season. I can't just disappear for military training." "We're not talking about full-time military service," Marcus clarified. "There are programs for civilians with exceptional skills who can contribute to specific missions on a contract basis. Part-time training, specialized assignments, compensation that would dwarf anything you're making in accounting." The offer was tempting, but Sarah needed time to process the implications. Her quiet weekend hobby was being transformed into something with stakes she couldn't fully comprehend. "What would be the first step?" she asked. Marcus handed her a business card with nothing but a phone number printed on it. "Think about it for a week. If you're interested in learning more, call that number and mention today's conversation. Someone will contact you to discuss next steps." As the team began packing up their equipment, Sarah found herself helping with the cleanup while processing everything that had happened. Her successful shooting felt surreal, like something she had watched rather than accomplished personally. Rodriguez approached her as she was cleaning the precision rifle she had borrowed. "Can I offer some advice?" Sarah nodded, still focused on the weapon's mechanics. "Whatever you decide about Marcus's offer, don't stop shooting. You've got something special, and it would be a waste to let it deteriorate from neglect." "What do you think I should do about his proposition?" Rodriguez considered the question seriously before answering. "That's not my decision to make. But I will say this: opportunities like this don't come along often. Most people spend their entire lives never discovering what they're truly capable of accomplishing." As Sarah packed up her own equipment and prepared to leave, Marcus approached her one final time. "I want to give you something to think about," he said, handing her a printed target from one of her long-range shots. "This level of accuracy represents skills that could save lives in the right circumstances. That's not a responsibility to take lightly, but it's also not something to waste." Driving home from the range, Sarah found herself alternating between excitement and anxiety. The business card felt like it was burning a hole in her pocket, representing possibilities she had never imagined and responsibilities she wasn't sure she was prepared to accept. Her quiet accounting practice and weekend shooting hobby had suddenly intersected with a world of precision operations and tactical applications. The question now was whether she had the courage to explore where those intersections might lead her. For 6 days, Sarah Mitchell carried Marcus Torres's business card in her wallet while trying to maintain her normal routine. She processed tax returns, managed payroll for her small business clients, and attended her usual weekend shooting session at Pine Ridge. But everything felt different now, colored by the knowledge that her quiet hobby might represent something more significant than recreational stress relief. During her regular shooting practice, Sarah found herself unconsciously pushing to longer distances, testing the limits of what she could achieve with her grandfather's rifle. The 500-yard steel targets that had once seemed challenging now felt routine. She began setting up her own targets at 600 and 700 yards, using a laser rangefinder she purchased to verify distances accurately. Her shooting groups at extended distances remained consistently tight, confirming that her performance during the evaluation hadn't been a fluke. If anything, her accuracy seemed to be improving as she gained confidence in her abilities. The precision rifle Marcus had let her use had revealed capabilities she didn't know she possessed. On Thursday evening, while reviewing quarterly tax estimates for a construction company, Sarah made her decision. She couldn't concentrate on spreadsheets when part of her mind was constantly wondering about roads not taken. The business card had become a constant distraction, representing questions that wouldn't be answered until she took action. Sarah waited until after business hours to make the call, ensuring privacy in case the conversation went in unexpected directions. The phone number connected to a generic voicemail system with no identifying information, just instructions to leave a detailed message. "This is Sarah Mitchell," she said after the tone. "I met with Marcus Torres at Pine Ridge Shooting Range last Saturday. He suggested I call this number if I wanted to discuss training opportunities. Please call me back at your earliest convenience." The return call came 18 hours later while Sarah was reviewing client files in her home office. The caller identified herself as Dr. Patricia Hawkins and asked several preliminary questions about Sarah's background, experience, and availability for extended travel. "Ms. Mitchell, based on Marcus's report and our initial screening, we'd like to invite you to participate in a more comprehensive evaluation. This would involve a 3-day assessment period at a specialized facility.
Are you interested in learning more? What kind of assessment?
Sarah asked, noting that Dr. Hawkins had avoided specifying which agency or organization she represented. Marksmanship evaluation under various conditions, psychological profiling, physical fitness assessment, and aptitude testing for specialized training programs. The process is designed to identify individuals with potential for advanced tactical applications.
Sarah's pulse quickened.
The clinical language couldn't disguise the fact that she was being recruited for something far more serious than weekend shooting competitions.
What happens if I pass your assessments? That would depend on your performance and interest level.
Options range from periodic training and consultation to full-time positions with federal agencies. But we're getting ahead of ourselves.
The first step is determining whether your initial performance was representative of your actual capabilities.
Dr. Hawkins provided travel details for a facility in Virginia, expenses paid, with the evaluation scheduled for the following week. Sarah would need to clear her calendar and arrange coverage for her clients, but the invitation felt like an opportunity that wouldn't be repeated if she declined. After ending the call, Sarah spent the evening researching what she could find about civilian recruitment for specialized military and law enforcement positions. The information was limited, but she discovered enough to understand that such programs existed and typically involved significant security clearances and background investigations. The drive to Virginia took Sarah through rural countryside that reminded her of home, but the facility she eventually reached was unlike anything in her experience. The entrance appeared to be a corporate training center, but the security measures and military vehicles in the parking area suggested more specialized activities. Dr. Hawkins met Sarah at the reception desk, a professional woman in her 40s who could have worked in any corporate environment. Her manner was friendly but businesslike, and she efficiently processed Sarah through registration and orientation procedures. The next 3 days will be intensive, Dr. Hawkins explained as they walked through corridors lined with classrooms and technical equipment. We'll be evaluating not just your shooting skills, but your ability to learn new techniques, perform under pressure, and adapt to changing scenarios. The first day focused on marksmanship evaluation using equipment and conditions significantly more challenging than anything Sarah had experienced. She found herself shooting at distances up to 1,200 yards, engaging moving targets, and compensating for environmental factors including artificial fog and simulated weather conditions.
Despite the increased complexity, Sarah's performance remained consistently strong.
Her mathematical background proved invaluable for calculating ballistic solutions, and her accounting discipline helped her maintain detailed shot logs that impressed the evaluating instructors. The second day introduced psychological and aptitude testing that felt more like a job interview than a recreational evaluation. Sarah answered hundreds of questions about decision-making under pressure, ethical scenarios involving life and death choices, and hypothetical situations requiring rapid analysis of complex information.
"Ms. Mitchell," said Dr.
James Crawford, the psychologist conducting her interview, "Your profile suggests someone who processes information systematically and makes decisions based on logical analysis rather than emotional reactions. How do you think you would handle situations where rapid decisions could affect other people's lives?" The question made Sarah pause to consider the implications of whatever training program she was being evaluated for. "I suppose it would depend on having clear guidelines and sufficient information to make informed decisions. I don't think I would do well in situations requiring pure intuition or split-second judgment calls. Actually, that kind of methodical approach can be an asset in tactical situations.
Emotional decision-making gets people killed.
We're looking for individuals who can maintain analytical thinking even under extreme stress." The third day brought scenario-based evaluations that pushed Sarah far beyond anything she had imagined when she first picked up her grandfather's rifle. She found herself engaging targets while wearing protective equipment, shooting from unconventional positions, and solving tactical problems that required integrating marksmanship with movement and communication. During one exercise, Sarah was paired with another candidate, a former military police officer named David Chun who had significantly more tactical experience. Their assignment required coordinating precision shots to neutralize multiple targets simultaneously while protecting simulated civilian hostages. "Sarah, you take the target on the left," David instructed through their communication headsets.
"I'll engage the right side.
We need to execute on my count to avoid crossfire." The scenario required Sarah to maintain accuracy while processing multiple streams of information: target positions, friendly locations, communication protocols, and safety considerations. Her shot execution remained precise, but the cognitive load was exhausting in ways that recreational shooting had never been. After completing the exercise, David approached her during the debrief session. "You shot well under pressure, but you looked overwhelmed by the tactical coordination. Have you considered whether you really want this kind of work?" It was a fair question. Sarah's shooting skills were clearly sufficient for whatever program she was being considered for, but the broader requirements were significantly more demanding than she had anticipated. The evaluation was revealing capabilities she didn't know she possessed while simultaneously showing her the gaps in her preparation for tactical applications. On the final evening, Dr. Hawkins conducted an exit interview to discuss Sarah's performance and interest in continuing with advanced training programs. "Your marksmanship scores are exceptional," Dr. Hawkins began, consulting a thick file of evaluation reports. "You consistently performed in the top percentile for accuracy and precision, even under challenging conditions. Your psychological profile suggests strong analytical capabilities and emotional stability. Physical fitness is adequate for most applications, though it would benefit from improvement." "That sounds like good news," Sarah said, though Dr. Hawkins's tone suggested complications were coming. "The challenge is that your tactical background is essentially zero. Most candidates for these programs have military or law enforcement experience that provides a foundation for advanced training. You would need extensive instruction in areas like communication protocols, threat assessment, and operational planning." Sarah had suspected this might be an issue. "How extensive are we talking about?" "Probably 6 months of full-time training to reach minimum competency levels, followed by ongoing periodic instruction and certification requirements. It's a significant commitment, especially for someone with an established civilian career." The conversation continued for another hour, with Dr. Hawkins outlining various program options and career paths that might be available if Sarah chose to continue. The opportunities ranged from consulting positions that would allow her to maintain her accounting practice to full-time positions with federal agencies that would require completely changing her life direction. "I need time to think about this," Sarah said finally. "The last 3 days have shown me things about myself that I didn't know, but they've also made me realize how much I don't know about this world." Dr. Hawkins nodded understandingly. "Most people find the evaluation process enlightening in ways they didn't expect. Take whatever time you need to make a decision. We'll hold your file for 6 months if you decide you want to pursue training opportunities." Driving home from Virginia, Sarah found herself processing conflicting emotions. The evaluation had been simultaneously exciting and intimidating, revealing capabilities she hadn't known she possessed while highlighting how much she would need to learn to apply those capabilities professionally. Her shooting skills were clearly exceptional by any standard, but marksmanship was only one component of the tactical applications she had been evaluated for. The prospect of 6 months of intensive training was daunting, especially given her established relationships with accounting clients who depended on her services. But there was something else, a nagging sense that she might be walking away from the most significant opportunity of her life. The precision shooting that had started as a weekend hobby was apparently rare enough to attract the attention of federal agencies with sophisticated recruitment programs. Back home in her familiar office, surrounded by tax documents and financial spreadsheets, Sarah tried to imagine herself in the tactical scenarios she had experienced during the evaluation. The contrast between her quiet accounting practice and the high-stakes operational world she had glimpsed was almost surreal. Sarah spent the next several days maintaining her normal routine while processing the decision she needed to make. Her clients noticed nothing unusual, but her weekend shooting sessions had taken on new significance. Every shot was now measured against the standards she had experienced during evaluation, and she found herself unconsciously practicing techniques she had learned during the tactical exercises. 2 weeks after returning from Virginia, Sarah made another call to Dr. Hawkins. "I've decided I want to pursue the training program," she said, surprised by how definitive her voice sounded. "I need to arrange coverage for my clients during tax season, but I think I can be available for a 6-month program starting in late April." "That's excellent news, Ms. Mitchell. I'll begin processing your security clearance paperwork and scheduling your training assignments. You're making a decision that could change your life in ways you haven't imagined yet." As Sarah hung up the phone, she looked around her home office one more time before beginning the process of reorganizing her life around an opportunity she was still struggling to fully understand. The accountant who had walked into Pine Ridge shooting range a month earlier was about to begin a transformation that would challenge everything she thought she knew about herself and her capabilities. The business card that had started this journey was now filed away, replaced by a thick packet of training documentation and security clearance forms that would determine her eligibility for a world she was only beginning to comprehend. The federal training facility in Quantico, Virginia, looked like a college campus crossed with a military installation. Sarah arrived on a humid Monday morning in late April, carrying a single duffel bag and a growing sense that she had committed to something beyond her full comprehension. The security clearance process had taken 3 months of intensive background investigation, during which federal agents had interviewed everyone from her high school teachers to her divorce attorney. Her training class consisted of 12 candidates from diverse backgrounds, former military personnel transitioning to civilian agencies, law enforcement officers seeking specialized certification, and a few civilians like herself who had demonstrated exceptional aptitude in preliminary evaluations. Sarah was the only accountant in the group, a fact that drew both curiosity and skepticism from her classmates. The first week focused on fundamental tactical concepts that most of her classmates already understood from military or law enforcement experience. Sarah found herself struggling with basic terminology, communication protocols, and operational procedures that others took for granted. Her shooting skills remained superior to most of the group, but marksmanship was only one component of the comprehensive training program. Instructor Michael Patterson, a former Marine sniper with 20 years of operational experience, approached Sarah after a particularly challenging session on tactical movement and communication. "Mitchell, you're obviously capable of making the shots when you're set up properly, but you're having trouble with the operational framework that gets you into position to take those shots. That's going to limit your effectiveness in real-world applications." Sarah nodded, feeling frustrated by her inability to quickly absorb concepts that seemed intuitive to her classmates. "I understand the theory, but I don't have the practical experience to apply it automatically. Everything requires conscious thought instead of instinctive response." That's actually not uncommon for civilian recruits, though most programs start with candidates who have more tactical background than you do. The question is whether you can develop those instincts quickly enough to complete the certification requirements. The training program was structured in phases, with candidates needing to demonstrate competency in each area before advancing to the next level. Sarah excelled at the technical aspects of precision shooting but struggled with tactical decision-making, threat assessment, and operational planning that required rapid processing of multiple variables. During her third week, Sarah was paired with another candidate for a complex scenario requiring coordinated precision shooting in an urban environment. Her partner was Lieutenant Colonel Sandra Williams, a recently retired Army officer with extensive special operations experience. "Sarah, your shooting is exceptional, but you're overthinking the tactical elements," Williams observed during their mission briefing. "You're trying to analyze every variable before making decisions, but operational situations require accepting incomplete information and acting decisively." "That's not how my mind works," Sarah admitted. "I'm trained to verify all data before reaching conclusions. Making decisions based on incomplete information feels irresponsible." In tactical situations, waiting for complete information often means the opportunity is lost or people get hurt. You need to develop confidence in your ability to make good decisions quickly, even when you don't have perfect data. The scenario involved neutralizing hostile targets positioned in a multi-story building while avoiding civilian casualties and coordinating with ground-based tactical teams. Sarah's precision shooting was flawless, but her hesitation during decision-making phases created operational delays that could have been catastrophic in real situations. After the exercise, Patterson called Sarah to his office for a progress evaluation that would determine whether she could continue with the program. "Mitchell, your marksmanship scores are among the highest we've ever recorded in this program. Your technical understanding of ballistics and environmental factors is superior to most instructors. But your operational performance is inconsistent with the standards required for field deployment." Sarah felt a familiar sinking sensation, the same disappointment she had experienced when failing to grasp concepts quickly enough in college accounting courses. "Are you dropping me from the program?" "Not yet, but we need to address the gap between your technical skills and your tactical application. I'm recommending you for supplemental training with one of our field instructors who specializes in working with civilian candidates." The supplemental instructor turned out to be Marcus Torres, the SEAL who had first identified Sarah's potential at Pine Ridge Shooting Range. He arrived at Quantico the following week and immediately changed the focus of Sarah's training from classroom instruction to practical application. "Sarah, you're trying to apply academic learning methods to skills that need to become instinctive," Marcus explained during their first session. We need to retrain your decision-making process to work with incomplete information and time pressure. Marcus's approach involved scenario-based training that gradually increased in complexity and time pressure. Rather than explaining tactical concepts theoretically, he put Sarah into simulated situations where she had to learn through trial and error while receiving immediate feedback. "Stop thinking like an accountant," Marcus said during one particularly challenging exercise. "In tactical situations, a good decision made quickly is better than a perfect decision made too late. Your analytical abilities are an asset, but you need to learn when to trust your instincts." The breakthrough came during Sarah's 6th week of training, during a complex scenario that required engaging multiple targets at varying distances while coordinating with a tactical team conducting a building breach. Instead of trying to analyze all variables before acting, Sarah forced herself to trust her initial assessments and execute decisions rapidly. Her performance transformed almost overnight. The same analytical abilities that had made her hesitant when applied slowly proved extremely effective when accelerated through practice and confidence building. Sarah began making tactical decisions with the same precision she applied to financial analysis, but with the speed required for operational effectiveness. By her 8th week, Sarah was consistently performing at the top of her training class across all evaluation categories. Her unique combination of exceptional marksmanship and analytical thinking was beginning to gel into capabilities that impressed even experienced instructors. Patterson approached her after a particularly successful training exercise that had involved engaging targets at distances up to 1,500 yards while processing real-time intelligence updates and coordinating with multiple team elements. "Mitchell, your transformation has been remarkable. You've gone from struggling with basic tactical concepts to performing at levels that would qualify you for some of our most demanding operational assignments." Sarah felt a sense of accomplishment that was different from anything she had experienced in her civilian career. "I think I finally understand what you meant about developing instincts. The analytical thinking is still there, but it's happening faster now." "Exactly. You've learned to trust your ability to process information rapidly rather than requiring certainty before acting. That's a critical skill for tactical applications." During her final month of training, Sarah participated in increasingly realistic scenarios designed to simulate the pressure and complexity of actual operational situations. She found herself working with FBI hostage rescue teams, DEA tactical units, and military special operations elements that used civilian contractors for specialized capabilities. One particularly memorable exercise involved providing precision shooting support for a simulated hostage rescue operation in a densely populated urban environment. Sarah's assignment required engaging hostile targets at extreme ranges while ensuring no risk to civilian bystanders or friendly personnel conducting the rescue operation. "Sarah, you've got eyes on the target building," came the voice of the tactical team leader through her communication headset. "We need you to neutralize the hostile in the 3rd-floor window on the east side. Clear shot?" Through her rifle scope, Sarah could see the target clearly, a simulated hostile holding a weapon and positioned to threaten the rescue team. But she could also see movement in adjacent windows that could represent civilians or friendly personnel. "I have the target, but I need confirmation on friendly positions before I can engage," Sarah responded, applying the decision-making protocol she had learned during training. "Confirmed, all friendly personnel are on the ground floor. You are clear to engage." Sarah's shot broke cleanly, impacting the simulated target with precision that drew praise from the exercise observers. But, more importantly, her decision-making process had integrated technical accuracy with tactical awareness and operational responsibility. After completing the final training exercise, Sarah participated in a comprehensive evaluation that would determine her certification level and assignment options. The evaluation included both written examinations and practical demonstrations of skills across all areas of training. Dr. Hawkins conducted the final interview, reviewing Sarah's performance throughout the 6-month program and discussing potential career paths that matched her demonstrated capabilities. "Sarah, your overall performance has been exceptional, particularly considering your lack of prior tactical experience. You've achieved certification levels that typically require years of experience to attain. What does that mean in practical terms?" Sarah asked, still processing the surreal nature of her transformation from small-town accountant to certified tactical marksman. "It means you have several options available to you. You could work as a federal contractor providing specialized capabilities to various agencies. You could accept a full-time position with organizations that need your particular skill set. Or you could return to civilian life with the understanding that you might be called upon for specific assignments requiring your capabilities.
Sarah considered the options carefully.
6 months earlier, she could never have imagined having such choices available to her. Her weekend shooting hobby had evolved into professional capabilities that were apparently valuable enough for federal agencies to invest significant resources in developing.
I think I want to try the contract option initially, she decided.
I'd like to maintain some connection to my civilian life while exploring what kinds of assignments might be available.
Dr. Hawkins nodded approvingly. That's probably a wise approach.
It will allow you to gain operational experience gradually while maintaining flexibility in your career decisions. The paperwork for Sarah's contractor certification took another 2 weeks to process, during which she remained at Quantico for advanced training modules specific to the types of assignments she might encounter. She learned about different federal agencies' operational procedures, specialized equipment systems, and the legal frameworks governing civilian contractors and tactical operations. On her final day at the training facility, Marcus Torres approached her for a farewell conversation. "Sarah, when I first saw you at Pine Ridge, I recognized potential that needed development. What you've accomplished during this training program has exceeded even my expectations."
"I still can't quite believe this is real," Sarah admitted.
6 months ago, I was doing tax returns and shooting paper targets on weekends.
Now I'm certified to provide tactical support for federal operations."
The shooting skills were always there, Marcus pointed out. What you've developed is the ability to apply those skills in contexts that serve larger purposes than personal recreation.
That's what makes the difference between a hobby and a profession.
As Sarah packed her belongings and prepared to return home, she reflected on the transformation she had undergone. Her identity had fundamentally shifted from accountant who enjoyed shooting to tactical professional who happened to have accounting experience. The quiet life she had built after her divorce would now be supplemented by assignments she couldn't have imagined just months earlier. The drive home from Quantico gave Sarah time to process the changes in her life and prepare for reintegrating with her civilian routine. Her accounting clients had been managed by a temporary replacement during her absence, but she would need to rebuild those professional relationships while remaining available for contractor assignments. Most challenging would be explaining her 6-month absence to friends and family who knew nothing about her recruitment and training experience. The security requirements of her new certification meant that most details of her activities would need to remain confidential, creating a separation between her public and professional identities. But, as Sarah pulled into her driveway and saw her familiar home and office, she felt a sense of completion rather than division. The analytical mind that had made her successful as an accountant had proven equally valuable in tactical applications. Her grandfather's rifle, which had started this entire journey, was waiting in her gun safe as a reminder of where her remarkable transformation had begun. 3 months after returning from Quantico, Sarah Mitchell had successfully re-established her accounting practice while living with the strange duality of her new professional identity. Her clients noticed nothing unusual about her 6-month absence, accepting her explanation of extended family medical issues without question. But the secure phone that sat beside her regular business line served as a constant reminder of the other world she now inhabited. The first assignment call came on a Tuesday morning while Sarah was reviewing quarterly reports for a local manufacturing company. The voice on the secure line was crisp and professional, identifying itself only as operations coordination before providing assignment details. "Ms. Mitchell, we have a requirement for precision shooting support in a federal operation scheduled for this weekend.
Are you available for a 3-day assignment in the Pacific Northwest?"
Sarah felt her pulse quicken as she glanced at her calendar. The timing was manageable, falling between client deadlines, but the reality of her first operational assignment was both exciting and terrifying. "I can be available," she confirmed, making notes about travel arrangements and equipment requirements.
"What level of detail can you provide about the mission parameters?" "Full briefing will be conducted on site. Travel to Seattle, contact information to follow. Standard contractor compensation plus expenses. Questions?" After confirming her acceptance and receiving travel details, Sarah spent the rest of the day arranging client coverage and preparing equipment. The precision rifle she had been issued during training was stored in a specialized case in her home office, a piece of professional equipment that seemed incongruous among her tax preparation software and financial calculators. The flight to Seattle gave Sarah time to process the significance of her first assignment.
6 months of intensive training was about to be applied in a real operational context where the precision shooting skills she had developed would serve purposes beyond practice targets and qualification courses. At Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, Sarah was met by a professional woman who introduced herself as Agent Jennifer Walsh from an unnamed federal agency. Walsh's manner was friendly but businesslike as she drove Sarah to a nondescript office building in downtown Seattle. "This is a joint operation involving multiple agencies with overlapping jurisdictions," Walsh explained during the drive. "Your role will be to provide precision shooting support for a tactical team executing a high-risk warrant service. The target has demonstrated willingness to use violence against law enforcement personnel." The briefing facility looked like any corporate conference room, but the assembled personnel clearly represented serious operational capabilities. Sarah recognized the professional bearing of tactical team members, intelligence analysts, and operational planners she had worked with during training exercises. Agent Walsh conducted the mission briefing using satellite imagery, floor plans, and intelligence reports that revealed the scope and complexity of the planned operation. The target was a suspected arms dealer who had been evading federal authorities for 18 months and was believed to be heavily armed and extremely dangerous. "Our intelligence indicates the suspect may attempt to escape through a rear exit that provides a clear view of the tactical team's approach route," Walsh explained, highlighting specific areas on the building schematics. "We need precision shooting capability positioned to interdict any attempt to engage our personnel from that position." Sarah studied the tactical plan carefully, noting that her assigned position would require shots at distances up to 600 yards in an urban environment with potential civilian foot traffic. The responsibility was significantly greater than anything she had experienced during training scenarios. "What are the rules of engagement?" Sarah asked, applying the systematic approach she had learned to use when processing mission parameters. "Deadly force is authorized to protect federal personnel and civilians from immediate threat of death or serious injury. Any engagement must be clearly justified and documented according to federal guidelines." Sarah spent the next several hours studying the operational plan, conducting reconnaissance of the target location, and coordinating with the tactical team members she would be supporting. The level of preparation required was far more extensive than her training scenarios had suggested, with multiple contingency plans and abort procedures designed to address various operational complications. On the morning of the operation, Sarah found herself positioned on the roof of an office building 4 blocks from the target location. Her precision rifle was equipped with advanced optics that provided clear visibility of the suspected escape route, and she maintained radio communication with the tactical team leader coordinating the warrant service. "Overwatch, this is team leader," came the voice through her earpiece as federal agents approached the target building. "We are beginning approach. Maintain surveillance on the rear exit and report any movement." Through her rifle scope, Sarah could see the back door of the target building clearly. The morning sun provided excellent visibility, and wind conditions were minimal, ideal circumstances for precision shooting if intervention became necessary. "Team leader, Overwatch. I have clear eyes on the target area. No movement observed." The operation proceeded methodically, with federal agents securing the building perimeter while the tactical team prepared for entry. Sarah's role was purely observational unless the suspect attempted to escape through the rear exit she was monitoring. 20 minutes into the operation, Sarah observed movement behind the target building. A man matching the suspect's description appeared at the rear door, carrying what appeared to be a rifle and scanning the area for threats. "Team leader, Overwatch. Suspect visible at rear exit, armed with long weapon, appears to be seeking targets of opportunity. Copy, Overwatch. Maintain surveillance. Do not engage unless immediate threat to personnel is observed." Through her scope, Sarah watched the suspect move into a position that provided clear lines of sight toward the tactical team's approach route. His body language and weapon positioning suggested preparation to engage federal personnel with hostile fire. "Team leader, suspect is taking aimed position with clear sightlines to your approach route. Assess immediate threat to team members. Overwatch, you are authorized to engage if suspect presents clear and immediate danger to federal personnel." Sarah felt time slow down as she processed the decision that confronted her. Through her scope, she could see the suspect raising his rifle toward the position where federal agents were advancing. Her training had prepared her for this moment, but the reality of potentially taking human life was fundamentally different from engaging practice targets. The suspect's rifle muzzle was swinging toward the tactical team's position when Sarah made her decision. Her shot broke cleanly, impacting the suspect's center mass and immediately neutralizing the threat to federal personnel.
Team leader, Overwatch. Threat neutralized. Suspect down. The aftermath of Sarah's first operational shooting involved extensive documentation, interviews, and procedural reviews that lasted for several days. The shooting was determined to be justified and necessary to protect federal agents from immediate danger, but the psychological impact on Sarah was significant. Agent Walsh conducted the final debriefing session, reviewing Sarah's performance and discussing the operational outcomes. "Sarah, your response was textbook perfect," Walsh said, consulting her incident reports. "Clean shot placement, appropriate decision-making under pressure, excellent communication throughout the engagement. The tactical team leader credits you with preventing casualties among federal personnel." Despite the professional validation, Sarah struggled with the emotional reality of having used lethal force against another human being. Her training had prepared her technically for such situations, but the psychological aftermath was more challenging than she had anticipated. How do most contractors handle their first operational shooting? Sarah asked, seeking context for her emotional response.
"Everyone processes it differently," Walsh replied honestly.
"Some people find that their training has prepared them adequately.
Others need additional support to work through the psychological impact. There's no right or wrong response, just individual variations in coping mechanisms." Sarah returned home to her familiar accounting practice with a fundamentally changed perspective on her contractor role.
The theoretical possibility of using lethal force had become a reality she would need to integrate into her professional identity.
Over the following months, Sarah received additional assignment offers that ranged from surveillance support to tactical training assistance. She accepted assignments selectively, balancing her civilian career with her contractor responsibilities while developing expertise in specialized applications of precision shooting. One assignment involved providing shooting instruction for FBI agents receiving advanced marksmanship training. Sarah found herself teaching federal law enforcement personnel the same analytical approach to precision shooting that had made her successful. Another assignment required supporting a multi-agency task force conducting operations against organized crime figures involved in weapons trafficking. Sarah's role involved providing overwatch during surveillance operations and tactical support during arrest operations.
With each assignment, Sarah's confidence and operational experience grew.
The analytical mind that had made her successful as an accountant proved equally valuable in tactical applications, and her precision shooting abilities were increasingly recognized as exceptional among federal contractors.
After 18 months of contractor work, Sarah received an unexpected phone call from Dr. Hawkins at the federal training facility.
"Sarah, we're developing an advanced training program for precision shooting instructors, and your name has been recommended based on your operational performance and teaching capabilities.
Would you be interested in a more formal role in training development?"
The offer represented another significant career evolution, from contractor to instructor, with responsibilities for developing training programs that would prepare other individuals for the same challenges Sarah had faced.
What would that involve in terms of time commitment and responsibilities?
Initially, a consulting role helping design curriculum and evaluation standards. Potentially, a full-time position if you're interested in making training your primary career focus.
Sarah considered the opportunity carefully.
Her accounting practice remained successful and provided familiar stability, but her contractor experiences had revealed capabilities and interests she hadn't known she possessed.
Teaching precision shooting to federal personnel would allow her to contribute to operational success while remaining somewhat removed from direct tactical applications.
"I think I'd be interested in starting with the consulting role," Sarah decided. "I'd like to maintain some flexibility while exploring whether training development is a good long-term fit." As Sarah hung up the phone, she reflected on the journey that had brought her from weekend recreational shooting to federal training development. The transformation had been gradual but fundamental, revealing capabilities she had never imagined possessing and opening career paths she could never have anticipated. Her grandfather's rifle still occupied a place of honor in her gun safe, but it was now accompanied by sophisticated precision equipment that represented professional capabilities rather than recreational interests. The accountant who had started shooting for stress relief had evolved into a tactical professional whose analytical abilities served national security objectives. Looking around her home office, Sarah saw the physical evidence of her dual identity: tax preparation software on one computer monitor, federal training manuals on the bookshelf, and the secure communications equipment that connected her to a world most civilians never imagined. The integration of these seemingly incompatible identities had become natural, each role informing and strengthening the other. The business card that had started this journey was now framed on her wall, a reminder of the moment when Marcus Torres had recognized potential that Sarah herself had never suspected. What began as curiosity about her shooting abilities had become a career transformation that challenged her understanding of what she was capable of accomplishing. As Sarah prepared for her next training development consultation, she realized that her story was far from over. Each assignment and opportunity revealed new aspects of herself and opened doors to possibilities she was still discovering. The quiet accountant who had once sought only recreational precision was now shaping the training that would prepare others for challenges she had learned to embrace.